off in this video because I just want to sit in front of my bookshelf today. I could have sat in my recliner, but like, what's the fun in that? Let's sit on the floor. I also moved my mic to be around here, so it just picks up sound better. So, lighting is gonna be weird because neither of my lights are set up. It's just like a chill thing to do. So this is literally just the bedroom light. I mean, office light, technically, because this is an office, but also it's a bedroom. Yeah. Which is like directly above, so shadows are gonna be a little bit of an iffy thing. But I wanted to just record a few videos today for this. I do want to preface that I will be doing a lot of videos like this. Maybe a lot more book tags in the future. Until like August, when I have time to do anything. I will try and get a book done. It's not going to be Reaper, because I don't know what it is with me, but I'm not able to read Reaper at the moment. So, who knows? Anyways, so today's video, you can already tell by the title, is on books for beginners in the fantasy genre. And I'm going to be recording this video and a couple others today, but this is the one you get for this week's video. The others are going to be backups in case I don't have a review, and if they are doing any, if they're uploaded a lot later, like in July, when I will have no time to record, then you'll know why. There's a whole time skip thing. However, before we get into the video, this is a really long intro, but before we get into the video, and I'll put a timestamp in the description so you know when the video actually starts. But for those that are interested, I've had some difficulties. Now, I've been trying to like keep it quiet. I've been just like, okay, be consistent with your uploads. No one will know what's really going on, and you could just live your life. However, it's become very difficult. Yes, I've been working for the last several weeks, 6-day weeks, 1 day off to like record, edit. Granted, I do most of my editing after work because I don't sleep. But I've been working like a lot of 6-day weeks to try and make ends meet at this point. But not only that, my mother won't leave me alone. It's sad to say this, but I have a crap family, and they don't like to leave a person alone when that person wants to be left alone. So, yeah, in August I am completely cutting off. But it's just the amount of gaslighting my mother is trying to do to me. And, like, I recognize it for what it is. It's gaslighting. And I can't deal with it anymore. It's making me stressed. So if I miss an upload, just know I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. And this is also when my channel is starting to get a little bit of traction when this is happening, because of course my life has to be a mess when that's happening. I can't have good things in my life, but you know what? Let's get this video out of the way first. So yeah, if you skipped all of that nonsense, because you don't really care what happens. Okay. Uh, and for those that stuck with that little that like couple minutes, let's just get into the video. If you did not stick around for that brief little uh explanation or whatever I want to call it, I don't know. I'm overworked. I'm tired. I finally have more than a single day off this week, and that starts tomorrow. Well, probably today actually, because oh my god, I um, couldn't find. I don't sleep at normal times, so yeah. Uh, but this is really the only time I could find to record something, and so I have to edit it after I go to sleep. And yeah. So yeah. This video, books that I suggest for beginners of the fantasy genre, based off of what I've read and what I enjoyed when I was first starting out in the fantasy genre, and just books that I think are nice, like ease in, and they're not too heavy in the lore. And I will, for those that are a bit heavier in lore aspects, I will I will say those ones. And like if that's something you really want to get into, you just want to dive into books that are a bit lore heavy, these ones are a really good start. Um but yeah, so let's just get into it. I have a list of 10 books. Well, 10 books that could lead, that also sometimes will include a trilogy or a duology, because a lot of fantasy is a duology or a trilogy. There's not a lot of books in the fantasy genre that can be standalones, and it's because there's so much world building that has to go into it, and there's just a lot, and fantasy stories usually do take at least 2 books, sometimes 3, or in the case of my own books, 4. And just to preface, this this video is not going to have my um I know a lot of authors would put their own books in uh for a video like this, but I'm not going to put my book in for this, and there's a reason. My book is meant for people who have already been in the fantasy genre, and they can absorb like more lore heavy things a lot quicker and a lot better, and it makes more sense to someone who's already been in the genre for quite a while and has read quite a few books and knows the gist. So that's why my book is staying out of this video. But if you read all these books and you still want to like dive into it a bit deeper, or if you really like the lore, you can go check out my book. Like, go ahead. Links are in the description. Anyways, let's just get on with the video. I should stop stalling. Now, I'm not gonna have most of the books in reachable distance from the floor, because there's a few of them, actually a lot of them, that are on the top shelves, and I don't feel like getting up. I'm gonna start with less like lore heavy books. One of my favorite books that I thought was a standalone, but it does have a sort of sequel that takes place years later. Um, I would say it's more of a companion novel, but yeah. The first book I'm gonna talk about is Sky in the Deep, which is apparently on a second shelf, so I'm not gonna have it right here, and there'll be a picture somewhere. But Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young is a really good book, and there's not a lot fantasy lore stuff it is like Viking-esque. It's also got a war story for those who are interested in that. I love it because I like Viking-esque stuff. I'm very as a person, I'm very like obsessed with weaponry that predates like guns and stuff like that. Like pre-modern weapons. I love them. And like combination weapons are really nice. I made up a few weapons for my book series. And again, my first book is the only one that's out. But I'm working on my third, and I've had to make a list of everyone's unique weapons and what they're like, and I've adapted some to be like another thing, and I've combined them and then made excuses as to why this actually works, because in our current world, it would not work. But yeah, I just I love it, and the main character, she fights with an axe and a sword, but she then gets kidnapped. She's basically a slave for the other tribe, and a whole bunch of stuff goes down. You really have to read it. It is there, and for those who are into enemies to lovers, uh, this is that. This is that type of book. It does have that as like a side story. Yeah, I would say side story. But our main character is trying to get back to her father. But it's a really great book, and it is one of my favorite to date. Just because it reads so well. It's not too big. It's a really good read. It usually does get me out of a slump, so it's kind of my go-to read when I'm in a slump, like I'm in right now. But I don't want to read it because yeah. Also, if you want to know more, I do have a review on it. Link will be in the iCard or description, wherever I decide to put it. You'll have to go hunting for it. But, like, you don't really need to know anything about Viking culture. You don't need to know a whole lot. Because it is, and that's like before going into it, it's really simple, and it's 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 a good like beginner fantasy read, because it's got something of the Viking. It's got because a lot of fantasies fight with swords, axes, not so much axes, but swords and bows and arrows and shields, and like that's a prominent role in fantasy. So something you should be looking out for. Next, for like really beginner, I would say Beneath the Citadel is a good one. It's a standalone. I'm starting off with standalones apparently. So Beneath the Citadel, you have four characters. They all are unique. I think one of them has a like severe anxiety or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's some sort of mental illness with one of the characters. It's been a hot minute since I've read it, but it was such a good book. I loved the twist ending. I loved where it went, and it didn't it didn't feel too much like fantasy in the beginning. It kind of took the fantasy twist at the end. Yeah, Beneath the Citadel, it's also got like prison, breaking out of prison, like a prison break kind of storyline, and a whole bunch of stuff. And it's just such a great read, and I really do love it. And, it's you just should read it on your own. But it does have that prison break. It's got a sort of like, it's not hugely fantasy, but it is classified as fantasy, and sort of like a fantasy thriller sort of type thing. There's a little mystery involved in it, because There are so many things happening that you don't actually know what's going to happen, and it's such a great read. I really do recommend giving it a shot. I'm gonna be naming and sending and putting links to all of these books in the description, just so you can know. Next is something I read when I was starting to branch out away from Cassandra Clare's, because that's where I started, was urban fantasy with Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter Chronicles. I don't recommend those as a beginner though, because if you're not too into reading, um, they start off real slow, but these are all like really good fast-paced stuff. This next one is kind of a very long series. I am number 4 series. It is written by Lore, which is an alias, and it's had many, I believe, many different authors behind this alias. But like, it's so great. I loved this series to the death. It broke my heart. Okay, if you are looking for a read that is going to send you crying, tearing up, just like giving you all of those emotions, I recommend this series because it is so good. Just fair warning though, Fall of 5 will rip your heart out. I'm just remembering it. Even years after I've read it, it still affects me, so that means it's really good. And it is honestly one of the better series that I've ever read. And the fact that it's a long series, I actually love, because it's so good, and it can technically classify also as sci-fi, but I do include it in like fantasy, but it could, because of the fact, because aliens uh could technically be sci-fi. You know, the sci-fi and fantasy genre kind of like blur lines sometimes, and it's really hard to defer which one's which. So yeah, really good series, and I highly recommend it. The first book might be a bit slow, but the rest of them pick right up after that. It's so great. So after those, I do think that something like, and this one also blurs the lines with sci-fi and fantasy, which is the Lunar Chronicles. And that one is just because it's such a great series. If you're into like cyborgs, there's that. There's also magic. There's the magic of the lunars. There's so many things that are so great about this book series. um, and honestly, there are a few bits and pieces that aren't loved by a lot of the fan base, but Marissa Meyer is a really, really good writer, and she is so good at writing like sci-fi and fantasy, like so good. I still have to read Nova. Is it Nova? Supernova? Is it that? It's at the fucking top of that bookshelf up there. Like, I can't see it from here. But yeah, I still have to read that, and I have to get through Gilded. But Gilded is more focused in like uh the fair folk lore, and so that's gonna take me a bit because I read a lot of Sarah J. Maas, and in like very short time, so I'm not really into fair folk stuff quite yet. That stuff is just still on the back burner for me. I don't know what it is about fair folk stuff. The Fae. I just I don't want to read anything about it right now. So yeah. Next, let's go to the Ruby Red Trilogy. Now, this trilogy, this is something I read a while back. And I read it when I was first, like, delving out of uh, Cassandra Clare. And this is another one of those books that I read. And the Ruby Red Trilogy is great. I read the first book in a day, a sitting. I read the first book so fast. I read the second almost equally as fast. Took a bit longer, it's a little thicker. And the third one took me a few days. Took me like 2 days. But I blasted through this trilogy. Blasted through it. And just as a side note, there is uh, time travel, so things kind of get a little confusing every now and then, which is why it's kind of in the middle of this list. Uh, there's things that happen, but you're learning along with this main, along with our main character, who is coincidentally not named Ruby, but Gwyneth, I think. I'll correct myself in editing. Yeah, editing me here, I'm just too lazy to go and check, so yeah, that's not gonna happen, bitch. But she's very I love this whole series. I love the Ruby Red Trilogy. I really want to give it another read because it it got me thinking so much. And maybe that's because of the time travel, and I've always been fascinated with time travel. But if you are fascinated with time travel, uh, and typically that's a sci-fi thing, but I do consider this a fantasy because of how the time travel is done. But because of all of that, the if you're into time travel and you're coming from like sci-fi, I really do recommend doing this. It brings in so many things like paradoxes. It brings in so many time travel things that like any nerd would know about, and it was really nice to see it when I was like 16 when I read it. So yeah, it's really good. It's something that I I really do enjoy. Uh, you don't see time travel a lot in books, at least in my opinion. Like good time travel, and like sure, it's a little iffy, but like when you read it first, like what's going on, what's happening, and honestly, so great. I love it. There's oh my god. So this is gonna be the last one for like not really lore heavy or like trying to figure out what's going on. And this one is Lore by Alexander Bracken. The only thing you need to have a vague idea about is Greek mythology, because this does have it is a urban fantasy with like being set in the real world, but in the event that the Greek gods are real and all of these stories actually happened and all these variations happen, like you get to see Athena, you spend time with Athena, and like there's and all the and Artemis, and Lore is such a good book to base in like the Greek mythos. And as someone who was obsessed with the Greek mythos for a long time, I'm so glad that Alexander Bracken wrote this book. It was so fun. It was such a nice read, and I just loved having this specific hidden world inside of the real world, and it's so great. I loved it. And you can actually see my video on it uh, up in the iCard, so check that out when you read it. 'Cause it's oh my god, the discussions that could come from this book. I don't know if I even like, was really good at explaining my thoughts, presenting my thoughts, but you know what? I hope I did good. But yeah, no, it's so good. You oh, there's like a you can kill gods to become a god. It's just amazing, and I love it. Alexandra Bracken is such a good writer, and like I loved her Darkest Minds trilogy, but the only reason Darkest Minds isn't in here is because I'm a little iffy on a few things in there, and uh, it is a good series, but I don't feel like it's a good series for like beginners because there are a few things in there that's like kind of iffy. Granted, the books I'm about to say next in the next few several minutes here uh, do question that theory. So yeah, that is like the end of like things that are for true beginners, people who aren't gonna like latch onto the lores as well as others. But so these next ones are for those that will jump into the lore a bit better. And first one we're going to do is a standalone called Four Dead Queens. Now, I read this. I don't remember if I have a review on it, but Four Dead Queens was a stellar book. The way it was written was so cool, and like it has a janky ass timeline. I'm just gonna say that right now. It's janky, but it's so good, so just great. I loved every minute of it. I just loved everything that was happening with everything, and just the world is so rich, so great, and it's an mostly easy world to kind of grasp. Like there's yeah, 'cause it's four dead queens. There are four queens, four quadrants of this world, and they all rule together. And then there's just a lot going on, a lot happening with it, and it's amazing. I really do. I love Four Dead Queens. It was such a great read from. I think I read it in 2021. Could have read it in 2020. The last 2 years have been a blur, and everyone should know why. But yeah, it was such a good read, and it was so amazing. I really loved it. All right. So our next one is going to be Defies the Night. This one I read uh, this year. I think this year could have been at the end of 2021. But I read this book and it was oh my god, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I loved every second of it. The trickery, the politics. I cannot wait for the sequel. But Defy the Night is such a good, fun read. It's fast paced. It's really intricate. It's got a lot of politics in it, yes, but those politics are really fun to read. Not fun to deal with in person, but really fun to read. It includes a lot of drama. You get to learn more about the king and the prince and all of these other people and what's happening. There's a disease going around. There's only one cure. There's poison. There's like fake uh, ingredients for this cure. It's so oh my god, it's just so good. And there's like a plot to kill the king. there's so much going on in this book, and I love every minute of it. It, like, the pacing never stopped, which was amazing, and I loved it. You can go check out my review on it, because I did one. It was a blast to read it. Can't wait for the next book. Do I know when it's coming out? No. Am I going to look? Maybe in the future. So I have only 2 left, and they're both series. One's a trilogy, and one is a duology. We'll do the Glass Spare first. The Glass Spare is a duology. Now, it's a duology, and, like, there's alchemy, there's like, there's curses, there's all of this fun, fun magic related stuff. Or alchemy is not even really magic, that's just science. There's curses, there's alchemy, there's your main character turning things into, like, glass or gemstones. I think it's gemstones. But, and then, it's so great. And there's, like, I don't want to say this because I don't actually know, but there is some sort of a mental, like, I don't want to say mental disease, because it makes it sound ugly. There's someone who is different mentally in the book, and it's so beautiful and great, and it's nice that to see that kind of representation, and it's just amazing. But yeah, let's get on to the last book here, because this video has been long enough. Well, this one's a trilogy. Now, this is called the FROSTBLOOD Trilogy. Now, I had the first book for a long time before I read it. And then when I read it, I was like, why the fuck did I wait? Why did I wait to read this? Like, I should never have waited this long. But I did, unfortunately. And it is such a beautiful book. Oh my god, there's warring kingdoms. And then there's... it's so difficult. Okay. There's warring kingdoms, there's magic, there's frost magic, there's fire magic, there's weird little night magic that happens in this trilogy. Like, it is so good. I loved it. I'm not gonna say the huge twists that happen, because, like, spoilers, but oh my fucking god. It's one of those books where you just have to read. It's also extremely, like, fast paced. It's beautiful. I love it, and you must read it. But yeah, those are for, like, more intermediate people who can actually, like, delve into these worlds that don't actually exist, but can exist in your mind if you absorb information like I do. Like, I will literally read a fantasy book and I will absorb everything about the world building and memorize it no matter what. Because I love to I just love the lores. I love everything about it. And a lot of these books I do wish I could read for the very first time, but I can't. So I'm recommending them to you if you haven't already read them. And for people who are just starting out in the fantasy genre, please go do so and read it. Read all of these books. They're super amazing. They're great. These are some of my favorite books in the genre that aren't, like, too heavy for fantasy. But yeah, that's it for this video. But yeah, and if you do want to delve into something that's a little more lore heavy, and for or if you're an experienced person in fantasy and you're just looking for new books that you haven't actually read. And there's a reason I recommended all of these books. I don't see them recommended enough on BookTube, so that's why I wanted to put them on here. But if you have not read any of these, I highly suggest doing so. And if you are an avid fantasy reader, do continue watching my videos. And also, if you want to support me, go read, go buy my book, read it. It is pretty amazing. And my second book will be coming out latest early 2023. But yeah, I'm really glad with this book, and it's just so good and great. And yeah, this was my first book, and it's just gorgeous. um, but yeah, so that's everything for for this video. Uh, hope to see you guys in the next one. And if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more content from me, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye! Okay, that was bad.